All right, and we're back here on WMSC 90.3. Sorry about that there, folks. We lost Dan Rosen for our interview. Now we can welcome Dan Rosen to the program from NHL.com. Senior writer, Dan, welcome to SMC Sports. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Great. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for the interview. So starting off, I had noticed over the weekend you were in Toronto for the Hockey Hall of Fame inductions. First of all, how was the experience? Great class. Phil Housley, Chris Pronger, Nick Lidstrom, Sergei Fedorov. So how was the time up there in Toronto this weekend?
Well, number one, I love Toronto. It's a great place to go, and I love Hall of Fame weekend. I've gone, I've been at the NHL now since 2007. I've gone every year except last year when my youngest son was born, so that took priority over going to the Hall of Fame weekend. But I love going to Hall of Fame weekend. It's a great celebration of the game. There's so many legendary players and executives around. So many great people to talk to about the game today and about the game when they were around too. So it's always a fun time. It's a very informative time too. You hear great stories and you get really great insight on where the game is now and where it used to be too. I always enjoy Hall of Fame weekend.
Yeah, it's always a great time. I enjoyed watching the ceremonies on Monday night. I mean, Chris Pronger, Nick Lidstrom, Housley, and Fedorov, guys who are real legends of the recent years in this league. Obviously, Fedorov had the mark for goals scored by a Russian player in the league, which Alex Ovechkin was so tantalizingly close to breaking at the Joe the other night, but he couldn't get the job done against the Wings. But an interesting class, and I think a great group of guys. I think the fans really enjoyed it.
Well, I do. I think so. This class ranks up there with some of the great classes that have gone inducted into the Hall of Fame. I mean, Nick Lidstrom, Sergei Fedorov would be good enough.
Yeah.
They'd be good enough. Toss in Chris Pronger, toss in Phil Housley, who I think is underrated for what he was able to accomplish in his NHL career. No, he did not win a Stanley Cup, but he really was a game changer. The way he played the game, the ability to join the rush, the offensive instinct that he had, and the amount of points he was able to put up. It took a while for him to get in the Hall. He was eligible for, I want to say 9 years he was eligible for before he got the Hall call, and deservedly so, I think. Great class. Add in Angela Ruggiero,
Yeah, that was a great addition.
Women's defenseman, too. Don't forget about her. Bill Hay was a longtime chairman of the Hockey Hall of Fame, president of Hockey Canada, played for the Chicago Blackhawks. He got into... And Peter Karmanos, the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes. But when you talk about Peter Karmanos, everyone always says, oh, he's the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes. He is, but his program, the CompuWare program that he ran for minor hockey in Detroit, changed hockey in Detroit, really made it Hockey Town. So great class of 7 people.
Yeah, really, it was an interesting group. I enjoyed the ceremony. So transitioning away from the events in Toronto over the weekend and going to the local teams here, we'll start with the Rangers. Off to 11-2-2 start in the season, really rolling right along, picking up where things left off last year, in the regular season at least. What's interesting to me about this team, they say they haven't played their best game yet. We've talked about it a lot here on SMC Sports. They probably haven't put together a full 60 minutes. What do you think's been working for the Blue Shirts so far, and what do they need to work on going forward?
Well, Lundqvist has been working. Henrik Lundqvist has been phenomenal. He is second in the league. That's what makes the matchup tonight so interesting against St. Louis here at the Garden. I'm here at the Garden right now, actually. Lundqvist is second in the league among goalies with 10 or more appearances with a .949 save percentage and a .163 goals against average. First in the league in those two departments, Jake Allen.
Who's going against him tonight?
.950 and .153 goals against average, and they'll be head-to-head tonight. He's been great.
Yeah.
That is the reason why the Rangers are where they are right now in the standings. It's Henrik Lundqvist. They have been good, or they've been okay to good in front of him. He's been great. They need to do. You said it. It's a 60-minute game, and they've put in good spurts, but not for a consistent effort. It's a long season. It's hard to do that. I understand, but they haven't really done it yet. And I think it's reaching the point now with the Rangers at 15 games. Are they going to do it, or is this what they are, and they're going to have to get great goaltending? Because everybody keeps saying, well, I mean, they haven't played their best yet. Have they? And it's just that Lundqvist has been this good? Or do they have more? I think they got more. Rick Nash, I know, has more. Chris Kreider, I know, has more in terms of goals in their sticks. And they're going to need him because there's going to come a point here where Lundqvist is going to have a bad game. He can't go like this forever. He's going to have a bad game, and they're going to need some offense, and they're going to need to generate it and really grind for it, because right now what I think they're doing more than anything with their scoring, and they're scoring goals, is they're capitalizing greatly on other teams' mistakes. Good for them. I mean, there's nothing negative about this. This is all good. This is what good teams do. But the great teams also put together the 60-minute games.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think a big thing, obviously, Kreider, Nash haven't been involved yet, but what's been huge to really help this team so far, and I think it's something that really hurt them in the postseason last year, not having him. Matt Zuccarello being back in the lineup, being on that first line with Nash and Brassard. Nash has been fighting some injuries, but I think Zuccarello's helped inject some life into Brassard, who was off to a sluggish start. So a guy like Zuccarello brings the energy. What do you see in him that really helps boost this team?
Well, it's hard to... I agree with you. He brings a ton of energy, and it's hard to look at a guy like Zuccarello as a glue guy. I mean, glue guys are not, the shortest guy on the team with a lot of skill. Glue guys are the third line or fourth line guy that, can move up and down the lineup when needed and really doesn't give you a bad effort at all. And Zuccarello doesn't either, but he's such an important player because I agree. He gives energy to Brassard, and even though he's small, he creates a lot of room out there for Nash, because guys have to, the defensemen and the forwards of the opposition, they have to keep an eye on Zuccarello. He will beat you. He is very good. He is skilled. He's got a lot in his arsenal, and he will beat you. And that, to me, opens things up for Rick Nash. Now, Nash has not scored, per se, this year. He's got 2 goals, one of which actually went into the net.
Yeah, the first one was the empty netter that wasn't.
The first one he got awarded the goal because he got hauled down on a breakaway when it was an empty net. So he hasn't scored. He's been around the net, I think, and he's getting his opportunities. That's why I think they're going to come for him. And I think a big part of that really is Zuccarello. Zuccarello is, like I said, I don't want to call him a glue guy, but he really is a glue guy for that line. He really makes that line go.
Well, what's interesting, he's really grown, I think, since coming over to the club from Europe. His game has gotten so much better. Now, switching over here, we have Dan Collins here on SMC Sports with us. So, Dan, go ahead. What's your question for Dan Rosen?
All right, it's Mr. Rosen. I'm a diehard New Jersey Devil fan, and obviously a lot changed this past off season. And I'm not sure what. I guess I know you're a senior writer. If you've seen any of the Devils players, is there been any significant difference that you've seen since I know you're more in the writer thing? You see a lot more of that. Are there any major differences that you see from last year's Devils team with Lou Lamoriello and now this year with all the front office changes they made?
A ton of changes, and I think all moving in the right direction. On the ice with John Hines as their coach, they're faster. They try to play a faster game. They try to hit a stretch pass, need a forward stretch pass. They don't try to chip it up and chip it in all the time. Now, they're lacking in depth. They just don't. They don't have a first line. They don't have a first line forward, in my opinion. Their first line is a pretty good second line. Their second line is a pretty good third line. Their third line is a pretty good fourth line. So that's where they are right now. That's going to be the hard part for this team this season. They don't have high-end forwards. They don't have dynamic forwards, but their D is getting better, specifically Larson and Severson. I love the way they try to play fast, move the puck, get into the play quickly, rather than dump and forecheck. I think they do this a lot better. So I like the way they're going. They've surprised me. They've surprised a lot of teams. I think they're one of the biggest surprises in the league right now with where they're at. I don't know how sustainable it is, but I think they're one of the biggest surprises right now. And off the ice, it just seems like a more open environment now. It worked for 28 years, or really, I would say for 25 years under Lamoriello until it stopped working a couple of years ago, where it was a little bit of a closed-door atmosphere there, very structured business-like, suits on, ties done up, that type of atmosphere. It's a little bit more open now with Ray Shero, and it's good. The players are embracing it. They enjoy it. They can grow some facial hair. They can wear the number 13. These things matter to players. They really do. It makes them comfortable. It puts them in their comfort zone, and I think it will pay off for the Devils in the end. They're in the right direction. Their organization as a whole is becoming far more open and willing to try new things and really modernize itself, and I think that's all good right now.
Hey, Dan, this is Sean McChesney. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. And I'm looking at the standings right now. One conference, obviously in the Western Conference, the Central Division is really really getting my attention. The Central Division, exactly. You know, you've got Dallas at 12-4, St. Louis at 11-3-1. You know, all of these teams are over 500 except for Colorado. They sit at 5-9-1. But just your quick overall take on last year's defending Stanley Cup champs, the Chicago Blackhawks. I believe they are only 1-5 on the road. They get a game against the Devils. I believe it is tonight, Nick, correct?
I think so.
8:30
tonight, 8:30 in Chicago. So that fits well for Chicago. But overall, you know, where they sit at 8-6-1, what's been your overall take for the defending Stanley Cup champions so far this season?
They've sort of been exactly what I thought they would be at the start of the season. They are a team that's, you know, has their core intact and is trying to flesh out some new blood within it. That's what they've done. That's what they always do. They're doing that right now. Artemi Panarin has been
what a steal!
Brilliant.
What a steal!
I mean, just brilliant playing there. And Patrick Kane's been good. They've had great chemistry. They still need. I really like the line with Artemi Panarin, Artem Anisimov, and Patrick Kane. Great skill and a big body down the middle. But that means they still need a left wing to play on their top line with Jonathan Toews and Marian Hossa. It was Brandon Saad. He got traded. So they're still a work in progress very much. And they didn't have Duncan Keith. They don't, you know, he should be back this weekend, but he's been out a while too. They're very much a work in progress, the Blackhawks, and that's really what I thought they'd be. They got rid of some. They were forced to get rid of some very important players from a championship team, and when you do that, you're going to have to be a work in progress at the start of the next year.
Well, sticking with that Central Division, Dan, I've had the chance to watch a couple of the teams in it. I've seen Dallas, St. Louis, and the Wild all on TV, Winnipeg too. Which one of them do you really like? I've watched the Stars a couple of times, and the big question with them seems to be, are they for real this year? Tons of talent up front. What's your thoughts on Dallas and the other teams in that division?
Well, I picked Minnesota to go to the Stanley Cup final, so I really like the Minnesota Wild. I think once it comes time to playoffs, they'll be one of the deeper, more skilled, more talented.
They roll four lines, and they've got good goaltending, too.
Yeah. And they have an excellent, underrated defense corps. They really do.
I really like Spurgeon.
I really like them. I like the Jets. The Jets, to me, are a team that still has to believe that they're good. And I know their record is good, but they've been a third-period team. They've given up the first goal in a lot of games. They still have to have a little bit more belief in themselves. But I think they're a good team, and Dallas is maybe the most exciting team to watch in the NHL. They will attack you, and they have so much skill in their top six with guys like Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn and Patrick Sharp and Jason Spezza, Nichushkin and Ales Hemsky and John Klingberg's an excellent defenseman. They are so fun to watch. If I could recommend any team for anybody who doesn't watch hockey regularly to watch, if they were looking for one team, it would be the Dallas Stars right now because of how fun they are to watch. Their goaltending is, look, it is what it is right now. It's a little bit of an issue, but I think it's going to be good enough for this team to make the playoffs and maybe even win a round, if not two, because they can score. They certainly can score, and I think Antiniemi's going to run away with that goaltending there in Dallas eventually. So they're a team, they've hit the next level in their development, I think, the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I've watched Dallas a few times, and they've got the deadly tandem up top, and I think Sharp fits perfectly with that line. Ben is such a lethal shot. You've got Sagan who can really rip him, and I think the biggest difference for this team versus a lot of the ones they've crossed paths with is their power play unit. They're dynamic on the power play. Their special teams are strong. They could be a little better on the penalty kill, but that's where guys like Fiddler and them fit in. But I know our Sean McChesney here has another question for you related to the rookies in this year's class.
Yeah, just going off in the NHL, there are a lot of great rookies that came out in the draft. Obviously, we know the big one, Connor McDavid, obviously,
Jack Eichel as well.
Yeah, obviously those guys fell victim to injury. But just real quick, what have been your impressions on the rookie class this year, Dan?
You know what? I think it's been a great class. It's been one of the best that I can remember in a long time, and it goes beyond. And I know that McDavid being out, that's a killer injury for everybody who likes hockey. He is sensational, okay? If you haven't had a chance to watch him play, do so as soon as he gets back into the lineup. He is sensational. But it goes beyond McDavid. It goes beyond Eichel. Like I mentioned, Artemi Panarin of the Blackhawks, he's been special. Colton Parayko, a defenseman that wasn't even supposed to make the team for the Blues. I'm going to see him tonight. He's big and powerful, and he's got a rocket of a shot. He's another one that really stands out. Max Domi and Anthony Duclair in Arizona have been phenomenal. Dylan Larkin for the Detroit Red Wings. But they don't play 19-year-olds in Detroit. They do if you're Dylan Larkin because he's that good. There's been a lot of good rookies in this class this year. It looked like McDavid was going to run away with the Calder Trophy. Now that he's hurt, it'll be hard for him because he's going to have to put on a tear when he comes back, and he might not be back until February, maybe. So that'll be hard. It's open for that Rookie of the Year, and there's a lot of good candidates. It's a really good class. I mean, it's a great class of rookies this year.
Just one more before we let you go here, Dan. The developing news with Patrick Marleau during the week that he had told the San Jose Sharks that the Rangers, Ducks, and Kings are on his radar for a trade. I don't see the Sharks dealing him to Anaheim or LA, two division rivals, and I'm not even sure if the Rangers could fit him in. But do you think there's any chance that those three teams will be involved if Marleau moves, and does he move at any point?
Well, I think it's really interesting. I don't know if he moves, and I think it's really interesting because I agree with you. I don't think they're going to trade him to the Ducks and the Kings. The only way they do is if they really get a great return, because you have to look at the return, not necessarily the team he's going to. You have to think that you're getting the better of the deal. If you're the general manager, if you're Doug Wilson, you got to think you're getting the better of the deal. But I still don't see that happening. And the Rangers, like you said, I don't know how they fit them in, and B, they don't have a first round pick to give up either, and they haven't drafted in the first round in forever. So I don't know if he gets moved. If those are three teams, it's going to be hard to move to any one of those three teams.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, financially speaking, it doesn't seem to fit. And as you said, the Rangers don't have the assets to move. And frankly, I'm not sure if at this age and this stage of his career, he fits into the style of play they have. Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great interview. We really enjoy it, and we'll look to have you back on soon.
All right, guys. Anytime, okay?
Thanks a lot.